So a little bit about HBX. First off is we are a privately owned company in Calgary, and we design, build, and manufacture every piece that comes to you from our location here. Testing on the control started in 2002, and the first control was sold in late 2005. So we're coming up to 10 years of sales here. So we are ETL listed. They are the biggest testing body in the world, and we are also UL and CSA approved. So the biggest principle, first off, behind our controls is that it has modular expandability. So that allows you to take a small unit and make it into larger units. So the main unit, the main control here is a CPU 1000. This has two stages, and if you wanted to expand your pumping or your boiler capabilities, you would just use an expansion module. So the CPU 1000 is the main unit, and when you needed to get into some larger applications, we decided to have the modules to add on to the main control and expand the capabilities for the CPU 1000 and also the Eco 1000, and then you can get into some larger commercial jobs and even some industrial situations. So the way we connect the control is simply by this 32-pin connector that connects easily to the side of the control or another module. So some of the features of the CPU 1000, it has multiple application modes. So within the control, it's either a staging control, a mixing control, domestic hot water, dual system, and a dual mixing control. We'll get into a few of those functions right away. So it has a modular expandability, so there's no cross wiring as they're color coded and keyed terminals. And so you can't put a blue connector in a red connector. It only fits in the blue space. We also have onboard pump sequencing. We have extra set points built on. And domestic hot water is built onto every control. And we have a graphic display, so we can show graphs right on the control. We have a brownout detection in the control. So we found out in rural areas pretty quickly that the power's not as good as in the city. So it's in there to protect the circuitry. So when you first start the control up, this is what you will see. So at this point you will pick what control you need it to be. So either a staging, a mixing, domestic, dual system, or dual mixing control. Your ABCD buttons will take you through the control. A is up, B is down, C is the enter button, and D is the menu or back button. So one thing when we designed the control is we took a lot of feedback from many different people, and they said they wanted to see a lot of information on the main screen. So back when this was designed, Tecmar was the main control on the market, and most of you might know that with their control you could only see one thing at a time. So we wanted to put a lot of information on that main screen. Because we have the graphic display, we could show what we wanted to show on it. So on the main screen you'll see your temperatures with your targets, whether the demands are on or off, all of your set points. You can see if it's in setback mode. You can see time and date. So on the system function screen to the right, you'll see what items are on or off, along with the number of cycles it's gone through. So this can help if you've just installed a system and your boiler is reading 2,000 cycles after a few days. You may know you're short cycling that boiler somehow. So it's just a quick check to make sure all is running fine within your setup. So a couple of the modules I'll talk to you about are the EXP 100 and the EXP 300. Your EXP 100 expands the capabilities of your boilers or heat pumps depending upon your application, as it has 2 extra dry contacts built into it. So you can wire whatever voltage you want in or out of the module. With the EXP 300, we call it a wet contact expander. It has 2 wet contacts built onto it. So that means we have 120 volt coming out of the EXP 300. So you'll need to power up the EXP 300 with 120, and then you can wire your pumps directly into the EXP. So this allows you to easily wire up pumps without doing a bunch of interconnections or junction boxes. The expansion module can also be used for extra set points. For example, if you wanted to run a hot tub or a pool, you would just add one of these modules onto a CPU 1000. The other expansion module is the Mod 100, and it allows us to control the modulating boilers, so you don't need a resistor to change from a 1 to 10 to a 4 to 20. So it's dip switch selectable on the back of the control. There's 3 different ways to modulate with the HBX controls. Series just says modulate the first one up all the way to 100, and then bring your second one up to 100, and then your third one up to 100. With parallel, it means that they'll all go up together. But then we decided to build something that helps keep the boilers condensing, as well as not cycling that lag boiler. We call it progressive, and it brings the first boiler up to 80%, and then it will drop that boiler down to 40% as the second boiler rises to 40% also. So essentially that's the same percentage. So from there we'd move the 2 boilers up to 80%, and then we drop them down to 50% as we bring the third boiler on. After that we'll move all 3 of them up together. So it's just a really good way to run the modulating boilers. The boiler staging is just a simple application with 2 boilers and a system pump. We can go up to 14 stages of boilers on the staging application with a pump sequencer, and we can also run domestic hot water from that as well. So that just gets us into some really big applications. So it's 14 stages of on-off or 7 2-stage boilers. With that you would need 6 expansion modules to get into the 14, and then you can attach those with the 32-pin connectors that are included. Everything is outdoor reset on the controls, so a lot of the lower level stuff we don't talk about, such as boiler rotation, post-purge, but many of the features are included with the CPU 1000 control. So in the mixing application, we can do up to 12 boilers. So with this, keep in mind that with the mixing control, it's still a boiler control, as it does mixing with it. You have 2 reset curves, so you have a low temperature and a high temperature curve. So in terms of a TechMark control, you need a 262 plus a 363 to run this application, where you would just need 1 CPU 1000. So we wanted to make sure we got the entire bases covered with the controls, so the end user doesn't have to purchase multiple controls and then wire them together. The domestic hot water control was designed for domestic hot water. So if the boiler water is the domestic water, the potable water, then this is the application you would use. So we have 2 boilers with 2 pumps and then a main domestic hot water pump. The algorithms were designed especially for this application, so that you don't use the domestic hot water control unless you're actually running potable water through your boilers, just because the algorithms are quite different than the regular staging control. The dual system was initially designed for a big rental community owner here in Calgary, Boardwalk Equities. So what this does is it takes the domestic hot water control and the heating control and puts it into one system. With this you can run up to 4 heating boilers and up to 2 domestic hot water boilers. You still have your pump sequencer and still have the capabilities of 2 extra set points. So this just takes 2 smaller systems and puts it into one control. The dual mixing control is just like a regular mixing control. It can provide 3 reset schedules, so 2 low temp and 1 high temp. You still get 2 onboard set points. You can stage multiple boilers, so you can do up to 10 boilers with this control. This is a comparison chart that shows us the Tecmar product line along with the HBX equivalent product line. So we're cost competitive with the Tecmar line, and a lot of the times our controls are below the cost of the Tecmar controls. So this shows that a 263 is a CPU 1000 and 1 mod control. A 268 is a 1 CPU 1000 and 4 EXP 100 says that is a 9-stage boiler control. So keep in mind the main cost is the CPU 1000, and then the expansion modules are not that expensive to add on to. So our Zone 500, this is either a standalone control, so it can work independent of our control, or you can connect it with other controls and have a lot more capabilities of the zone control. So you can connect this with the Eco 1000 or the CPU 1000. It can control up to 4 zones. You can do zone pumps or zone valves. So whatever power you put into the control, say 24 will come out. If you put 120 in, the 120 comes out. It has 2 TT contacts, so 1 heating and 1 cooling, and it also has a system pump output also. This can be expandable up to 36 zones. That's just an arbitrary number that we thought nobody would ever exceed. It has your zone post-purge pump or valve control. 24 VAC power comes out for your thermostats, and you can also have domestic hot water priority. But when you hook this up to the controls, you don't need to cross-wire anything from the zone control to the 1000 controls. And you would just connect it with the 32-pin connector. So in warm weather shutdown, it will send a signal from the 1000 control to the zone control to shut off the zones. So if the thermostat is calling and the control is in warm weather shutdown, it won't turn the pump on, which just gives you a lot better efficiency. If it's connected with an Eco 1000, the heat pump control, you can actually choose if you want a heating zone or a cooling zone. If it's in cold weather shutdown, the heating zone will be locked out. If it's in warm weather shutdown, the cooling zones will be locked out, and that we just call that zone protection. So here's just how you would wire up your zone control. So thermostat power is on your right up top, and your 2-wire thermostats go in, let's say 5 and 6, 7 and 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. In 1, 2, this is where you have your demand outputs, your boiler TT or your cooling. And then in 3, 4 is where you have your domestic hot water or your heating. And then your system pump down on the bottom in 1, 2. So it's dip switch selectable on the back, whether you want a high temp demand or a low temp demand zone. So this will fire the demand on the control when the zone is either calling for heating or cooling. A main thing about the Zone 500 is we have different priorities that you can select. So you can do a heat zone or a cool zone priority. You can have sequential setup. So one takes precedence over 2, 3, and 4, or you can have 2 precedence over 3 and 4. You can also do Zone 1, 2 over Zone 3 and 4. And then if you have multiple modules, you can select each module over another module. If you have more than 4 zones and you have let's say you have 6 zones and you have 2 Zone 500s connected together, you can choose which module you want to have priority. So here's just a quick wiring diagram, and it shows with a standalone Zone 500 how you connect your thermostats. And with ours, we're showing the THM 100. So your 2 wires are in, for instance, the Zone 1 would be 2 wires and 5 and 6, and then you'd have your power out to your 24 VAC and 13 and 14. So with this illustration, it's just a standalone Zone 500 with a 3-wire thermostat, and it's also showing you with an aquastat. So an aquastat would be just 2 wires, 5 and 6, and your 3-wired thermostat you can also use with our zone control. And this shows you how you wire it with our new CPU 550. So your your TT contacts and your domestic hot water heat demander in 1, 2, 3, and 4, connecting it with the CPU 500 down in this region on the left of the CPU 550 control. So all of these diagrams are in the manual. So this takes us to our new CPU 550 control. So we made many changes over the previous 500 boiler control. We have a new enclosure and a new display with a 3-button user interface. It's extremely easy to program, and the main thing is you can see all the system information on your main screen. So the control can be used for the following applications. It can be used as a staging control, a mixing control, a differential set point, or a pump sequencer. Now, before we had the geothermal application on the previous CPU 500, but now we have an Eco 550 control that's a dedicated geothermal control. So here are some of the main features from this control. So it's up to 3 on-off boilers or a single modulating boiler. Has multiple pump selections. You can do domestic hot water, a boiler pump, or a system pump. Has boiler runtime rotation. It has multiple mixing options. You can do injection, floating action valve, or a 0 to 10 volt. And some of the main benefits is it's easy to program, it's easy to wire with the color-coded and keyed terminals also. And then once again, all of your system info is displayed on the main screen. So this slide just shows you with the wiring chamber open, and it shows you the connectors, where you wire up your boilers, your sensor, and also your power. This mode is used for running boilers only. So you can see there's a system status screen along with the system function screen on one display. So with the CPU 1000, you would have to switch between those 2 screens to see what's going on. So just a really easy way to see what's going on with your system without having to scroll through multiple displays. Here's your mixing mode. So this configuration just includes PMIP, modulating and floating action valve. Your pump sequencer. So this provides pump control for 2 pumps. You can rotate on cycles, time, or on both. If you connect an outdoor sensor, you have the warm weather shutdown. You can sequence and cycle pumps, override and turn the pumps off when the outdoor temperature goes above the warm weather shutdown. Here's a differential set point. And then we have another comparison chart for the CPU 500 or 550 compared against the TechMark controls. So you can really see that the CPU 550 control can replace a lot of the TechMark controls. So this is really good at a wholesale level. They don't have to carry as many SKUs, stock as many controls. You have quicker turnaround on these controls rather than keeping, let's say 10 different TechMark controls on the shelf. You would just need one CPU 550. It's also good for contractors if they needed these controls within their truck. There's just one control. And for a lot of these controls on the list, we're really price competitive. I'll get into more of the other comparison lines in a little while. For instance, a 150 set point control, a 256 boiler control. We would just suggest using a different HBX control at a cheaper price. So the Eco control, this will run your heat pumps or your chillers. It'll run your reversing valve. It can run a dual tank or a single tank system. The Eco 550 is kind of the new control for us. This can do everything an Eco 1000 can do, but it can do up to 3 stages. It is not an expandable control like the Eco 1000. It has single tank or dual tank capabilities, as well as a warm weather and cold weather shutdown. So with the new display, you'll see all of your system info without going through multiple screens once again. You'll see if there's a heating or a cooling demand. It shows temperature for current applications along with the targets that you've set up. You'll see which heat pumps are on or off, along with the backup and reversing valve. It has a multicolored backlit display. It just gives you a visual on what the system is currently doing at that time. Yellow would mean your demand is satisfied. Red means there's a current heating demand. And blue, there's a cooling demand. So this diagram shows a 2-stage setup with a dual tank. And we're showing a 2-stage with a single tank application with this diagram. And then when you connect a Zone 500 to an Eco 550, you can run heat zones or cooling zones, whereas other zone controls you can't do this. So this is once again a wiring diagram with an Eco 550 with our zone control, and also with the thermostat wired in at the top of our Zone 500 control. So the Eco 1000 was our first geothermal control in the market. Back in 2007 was introduced. So it's our geothermal control, and it allows you to do either solar or geo capabilities. It works the same premise as the CPU 1000 control. As you can see, it basically is a CPU 1000, and the only thing that's different between the two controls is actually the software. So we can keep the manufacturing costs down if it's just a software change. Everything is the same as far as the color-coded and key terminals, and there's no cross-wiring. It has extra set points, and you can use all of the expansion modules except the Mod 100 because you don't do any modulating with an Eco. It has a fault indicator on it, also automatic heat-cool changeover. So what that does is we have a warm weather and a cold weather shutdown built on. So you can adjust the settings so it doesn't matter if the thermostat is calling and cooling. If it's only 40 degrees out, you can lock those out. Once again, onboard graphing on the Eco control along with the brownout detection. That's the same as the CPU 1000. So once again, you can do a heating tank or a cooling tank, or both heating and cooling tank in one, so it doesn't matter if you're using a single tank or a dual tank situation. The user interface is the same screen as the CPU 1000. This just shows you a different nomenclature. For example, we'd show a tank temperature, and if you're running a two-tank system, it would read a hot tank and a cold tank. It has your targets, your outdoor temperature, and your set point. So if you have them, it shows you a heat demand or a cool demand, whether there's a fault in your system, your set points 1, 2, and 3, warm weather, cold weather shutdown. We also have the system function screen, and it shows you what is on or off as well. So with the Geo application, we can do up to 14 stages of on-off or 7 two-stage compressors. This can also be used for chillers. It doesn't necessarily have to be using heat pumps. So with this illustration, we're using a single tank for the Eco 1000, and you can also attach a Zone 500 and you can control zones out from the tank here to the right. So basically this is a single tank with a single heat pump and then out to a ground loop. It can also control the backup heat source. So what that allows you to do is you can either bring the backup on with a few different options. You can bring it on and lock out the heat pump based on tank or outdoor temperature. So there's some backup options you can choose with this control. So with the Eco 1000, when you use the solar programming, it allows you to get into some larger solar applications. So it's basically a differential control with a backup as well as having a dump contact on it. It has auto-tuning differential built onto it, so it will make sure you have the optimum BTU transfer. So it's going to change your delta T based on the run time of the pump. So now we'll get into our snow melting system. And the biggest difference between our setup and everybody else's snow melting is we've developed an optical sensor. So what this allows you to do is actually see the snowfall. It's not a typical continuity sensor where snow hits a sensor and the built-in heater melts the snow, and then it has to make continuity between the brass fingers, and then it sends a signal to the control. Now we can actually see how much snow is falling, and you can tune the system based on that rate. So the optical sensor allows us to have multiple snowfall intensity settings. So you can run an instantaneous snowfall setting where the control will wait to turn on until you see a snowfall rate above what you've set for it. So currently, for example, if you have a picky customer and they don't want to see any snow at all in their driveway, we go in percentages right now, anywhere from 5 up to 100%. So the lowest setting is 5%. That means as soon as any snow hits that sensor, it will turn that system on. If you have a customer who doesn't mind to see an inch or two in his driveway, and then his system turns on, you can set that to 30 or 40%. So it'll wait a little bit longer to turn your system on. You know, with a commercial application, a ramp, a driveway, a parking lot, and obviously you'll want that system to turn on the moment snow is sensed on that sensor. So you would just set that percentage right down to the lowest it can go. There's a continuous snowfall setting when it's in this mode. When it snows, even though it might not be snowing hard enough to get over that instantaneous setting that you've set in the control, it might snow for a long time. So for instance, if you set it for 30%, and as soon as the snowfall rate hits that 30%, you want the system to turn on. It might snow at 20% for a couple of hours. So with this, in this setting, it'll bring the control out of the idle mode and into melt mode, and that's based on time. So if it's snowing at 25% for 3 hours, you can set it to turn on. And you also have a forced melt demand, whether you just want to turn the system on or off. You have that option with the control. So there's two parts here. There's a socket for the installation, and then there's also the snow sensor that comes with 100 feet of cable. It does come with a really good 3-year warranty with it, and the sensor is a polycarbonate plastic. It's the hardest plastic you can get, so it's scratch resistant, it's gouge resistant. This doesn't affect the optics of the sensor, so it doesn't matter if it's in the driving path of vehicles or not. So currently we have 2 snow controls that work with the optical sensor, and the first we'll cover is the Snow 1000. Your Snow 1000 control can do some really big systems. It can run boilers, it can run all of your mixing, it can run floating action, and so on. The Snow 1000 has an idle mode, melt mode, and a forced melt demand. You can run adjustable delta T's. You can also run up to 10 on-off boilers or 5 modulating boilers. Has multiple mixing, so valves, injection, warm weather, cold weather shutdown. So it has a lot of the features with this control. With the Snow 1000, it also has a secondary zone, so you can set up a snow zone and a slab zone. So you would just connect a thermistor, and you can do something like a driveway or a walkway, pathway, or a patio, and that's just based off the temperature of your slab. So the Snow 500 is the kind of the most popular choice that HBX has. So with this control, it incorporates all of the features from the Snow 1000, except in a small package. This will not do multiple boilers. It only has one boiler TT contact. Has a multicolored backlit display. So light blue, there's no demand on your system. Dark blue means it's in idle mode, and red means it's in melt mode. You can only do injection or valve control. It has a single zone operation, so it doesn't come with a slab sensor for another zone. We use the same optical sensor as we do with the Snow 1000, and you also have warm weather, cold weather shutdown. So this has taken over most of the sales we had in the Snow 1000, as it's a really inexpensive snow melting solution on the market, and we get a lot of sales based on that. So, but we are coming out with a new Snow 550 control. So the Snow 550 will replace the Snow 500. We are probably about 6 weeks away from releasing this product. So it's kind of a good time to be developing it, as the only thing that's really getting installed currently is the optical sensor and obviously the installation socket. So we're keeping it the same price as the Snow 500, but we do have more features, more benefits. Once again, the new user interface, easy to use, easy to set up. We're going to get away from using percentages. Some people got a little bit confused trying to set up the Snow 500, especially with the percentage rate. So I think we're going to go, we're still kind of working on this to have like a very light, a moderate, and a heavy snowfall setting. So it'll be really simple to set up this system and set up the control, where the Snow 500 you kind of had to shift through a bunch of different screens. With this one, it'll be, the user interface is a lot like our THM 100 and THM 200, so it's pretty basic and easy to use. So here's some of the features. Once again, you'll see all your system information displayed on the main screen. We're kind of in discussion of having preset snow locations. So you can have a ramp, a driveway, stairs, or a sidewalk. This helps in basically the quickness of how you can set this control up. So if it's a ramp, it'll have default settings for that, and you don't have to go in and program certain settings within that control. You can do injection or mixing, and once again, this one has a smart testing function just like the Snow 500 does. So your benefit, it's easy to program, covers a wide range of residential and commercial applications. So, for contractors, it's easier to use, less hassle. And once again, your optical sensor can be installed remotely with this snow control also. We're also working on having to cut down on some errors and some user installation errors out there, is having the resistance be automatically adjustable if for some reason a cable is cut. So previously we didn't want anybody cutting the cable on the optical sensor. With the Snow 500, it changes the resistance in the sensor, and then the readings kind of get screwed up with the Snow 500. With our Snow 550, it doesn't matter if you cut that control, but we're just in our final testing stage for that. So here we just have the graph with the HBX system. With a conventional kind of snow melt sensor, as soon as snowfall hits that sensor and melts, that system turns on. With HBX, you can choose to have it different sensitivity settings with it. So for instance, if we wanted to have our system turn on when the snowfall is light, we could save an hour or more of energy and time on your snow melt system. And then also it's the exact same as when that system turns off. When it falls below light and goes into very light, your snow melt system will turn off. So it's just, you can get some really huge savings throughout the season if your system's turning on later and turning off sooner. So on to the thermostats. The THM 100 is a single heat or single cool thermostat. This can also be used as a set point control. So with us, it's not only a thermostat, it can also be a Tecmar 150 set point control. We have a lot of people using it for heating and cooling applications, and people are actually using this to replace aquastats, so you have a digital aquastat instead of a mechanical. So one big difference in the HBX thermostats is that we're using a full PID logic thermostat. So this is designed for radiant applications, as many of the thermostats in the market only have the P and the I, but it's the D, the derivatives part, that actually gets us into the radiant controls. So we're watching the rate of movement on the slab on the way up and the rate of movement on the slab on the way down. So this means we're not going to overshoot and undershoot on that slab. If you don't have a full PID logic, then your thermostat is really going to overshoot and undershoot on a radiant application. So for instance, if you have a set point at 72 and your temperature is rising, with the HBX thermostat, it's not going to turn off at 72. It may turn off at 71.2 because it knows the rate of that heat inertia will hit 72. It's just way better efficiency and comfort and minimizes that overshoot and undershoot. So there's 3 modes in which you can set up the thermostat. You can use a room mode, so that'll use the thermistor and the thermostat. You can also use it in floor mode, where you're using the thermistor. When you set up the included 10-foot thermistor, it runs running it to the slab. Or you can use it in dual mode, so you're using both thermistors in the thermostat and also the slab sensor, and you're sensing the temperatures for both locations. So you can have your floor a little bit warmer than what your room temperature is at. So with our THM200, this is a 3-stage fully programmable PID logic. It has your 5 and 2 day programming. So it can run 3 stages. You can do 2 heat, 1 cool, 1 heat, 2 cool, heat, a single heat, single cool, or cool with even with a fan control. It comes with a 10-foot thermistor also, and once again you can do room, floor, or dual mode setup. And with this backplate view, you can just kind of see the ease of installation. So we have a connector on the backplate, and you'll fish your wires through the hole, mount your backplate, and with the front plate of the THM 100 and 200, you just connect it and it snaps into place. So it's really easy to install. You can also use the THM 200 as a single stage boiler control with outdoor reset. So you can use it either as a thermostat or in boiler mode. So here is a comparison chart for the thermostats. So with the THM 100, this can replace lots of different thermostats and also a single stage, 1-stage set point control for Tecmar. And then with the THM 200, this does replace a number of their thermostats as well as a 256 single stage boiler control. So something most of you should know about is our Wave 100, the wireless outdoor sensor. So the biggest advantage with this is you can connect it to any control that uses a thermistor input for its outdoor sensor. So you can connect it to boilers, to controls, to thermostats. It's really great for retrofits as well as new installations. There's a base, and then there's a wireless sensor that you put on the north-facing wall. So some of the features is you can use it with multiple thermistor curves, so it can work with the Wiesmann at 500 ohms. You can use it with 5K, 10K, or 20K thermistor curve. It has a really, really good 2,000-foot open-air range. You know, we have really good 2.4 gigahertz frequency. There's a minimum battery life of 2 years on the outdoor sensor portion. It's really easy to pair up and to connect with your base unit. You just push a button, hold it for 3 seconds, and then they pair together. Works with any control, not just an HBX control. There's no electrician. To wire up. It saves time, saves money. Even I can install this. A couple of the other benefits is you know when to change the battery. So with the base unit, if your battery is running low, it'll just blink 4 seconds each, or 4 times each second. So you'll know, okay, I need to change my battery for that. And then also you'll know where to place the sensor. There's a signal indicator with the base unit, so it'll flash 1 to 6 times, 6 being the strongest, obviously. So the Wave 100, we're starting to gain some traction with that. You know, that's a good piece that people forget to run wire for a boiler or an outdoor reset control. So this, they can just do it really quick, or sometimes it's impossible to run a wire to the north facing wall, or some people install it to the south. So that's a really good product that you can use for kind of the retrofit and the new installation. So you'll want to try to push it on those fronts. The ORC 100 is just our outdoor reset control. So really this is a THM 200 thermostat, but with only the boiler programming built within it. And then it also comes with a outdoor sensor with it. So, and then obviously you know the benefits of the outdoor reset. You can reduce your fuel, stable indoor temperature, and then with our control, some of the other features over our main competition, the Tecmar 256, is that you have a boiler pump contact, you have domestic hot water capabilities, priorities. It's a single screen programming. People really like our thermostat because it's large display, and it's also a backlit display at a much better price point than the Tecmar 256. So we're getting towards the end of the presentation. We'll get into our software really quick. We have the CIS software. It's a real-time logging system, and you can also do remote programming for the 1000 series controls. So you can use it with the CPU Eco and the Snow 1000 controls. It has a quick load feature that allows you to put all your parameters in the control from one screen. We built the software for people to log into their controls, to watch them, to make sure all is functioning correctly within your system. The 1000 series controls have a built-in history, so you can retrieve the history from your control over the last 7 days. To get the remote, the remote capabilities for the 1000 controls is you can get a CIS 300. It's an Ethernet modem, and that allows you to remotely log into your control from the internet, from your computer, wherever you are. So you can check your system, and you can make any adjustments from that control from your computer. We have the HBX Designer Software. So we built this software to help with contractors or agents design controls that are needed for specific jobs. So with it, you would choose a control type. Say you wanted a staging control, it would start to populate the controls based on that need. And in the control layout box down at the bottom here, it would give you pictures of exactly what you wanted. So for instance, if you needed a 4-stage boiler control, it would have a a CPU 1000 with one EXP 100. It would give you a parts list. You could print that off and you could take it into your contractor or your wholesaler and they'd be able to fill that order for you. So the software also allows you to get wiring diagrams from it. So when you're done designing your system, you would click on a little lightning bolt right there, if you can see my cursor, and it'll go to our HBX server and find a wiring diagram for that system setup. If the server doesn't have that specific diagram, it allows you to send us an email and we can do that wiring diagram basically within a day. A couple of things we're working on currently is having a phone app for comparing HBX versus TechMark controls. So we're going to have a picture of an HBX control. It'll give you a manual link. It'll give you the info sheet. Currently we're working on the iOS, and then we'll do the Android shortly thereafter. We're almost done the Apple development, and then the Android is a little bit easier to do that. And then we're also designing a web-based designer software. So this is going to be a lot more easy to use. It'll be updated, and you can access this directly from our website. So it's a web-based designer software. There's no software that you have to download and keep an icon on your desktop. You can just go to our website, and then you can have that option there. So those are some of the things we're working on, and then also we're working on some Wi-Fi enabled thermostats with some wireless zoning control that we're hoping to get out by the end of the year. So once again we'll have apps for phones, for your iPad, computer, where you can monitor and see what's going on with temperature from your thermostats in your home. So that's the presentation. Thanks for joining. I don't know if anybody has any questions. I can kind of take people off mute here.